Hey, what's going on, you guys? All right, so in this video, I'm going to walk you through a very easy workflow so that you can learn how to use n8n and how to build some basic things using some nodes within n8n. And these skills are going to stack as we build more advanced and more complicated workflows. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because there's a couple people on the internet that are actually teaching very good n8n training. This is how I got started. But one thing that I found when I was starting to play with this is that it's very easy for us to get overwhelmed, especially if you don't come from a technical background where you have to deal with APIs and OAuth authentication and all these different things. It can get very complex and you can run into a lot of errors. And I could see how a lot of people would want to just toss up their hands and give up. So to avoid any of that, I'm going to try to simplify this as simple as possible. Simplify as simple as possible. Redundancy. Anyways, you get what I'm saying. I want to make this as simple as possible for you guys to dive into it, because if you can get this down right, it can be a very profitable skill set for you, whether you're going to build a business doing this, like as an AI agency, AI automation agency, or if you're just going to do this to kind of make a little bit of money on the side and help individuals, or maybe even do this as part of your full-time job, right? I don't know. So anyways, needless to say, let's go ahead and dive in. So I have a n8n workflow that I built out, just kind of like a test, not a test, but like a scenario that we can kind of work through. And in this workflow, we have three different nodes. We have a trigger node, which is this manual click execute. You just literally click it and it'll start the workflow. The second node here is an HTTP pull request. So it's pulling it's making a pull request to a website or an HTTP, right? So this is the URL that is going to be making that GET request to, and it's a joke API that it's going to be making a call out to. So it's official joke API at appspot.com/randomjoke. And just to kind of like show you what this looks like in a browser, so you guys can kind of get an idea. I just copied and pasted that in my browser, and then we can see here's the type. It's a general joke. Here's the setup. The setup is what kind of pants do ghosts wear? And the punchline is boo jeans, right? So dumb joke, but you kind of get the idea, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to format this in a way within the workflow so that you're getting the same type of response that you would inside of a web browser, but you're going to get it within your workflow. And the reason why you can do this and why this is helpful is because later down the road, you can actually plug this into downstream applications like Slack or Telegram or WhatsApp, and you can have communication back and forth. And this is really just a simple example to A, show you how these nodes kind of work together, and then B, how we can make API calls out and pull things in to our workflow, which is going to be critical. All right, so let's go ahead and start building this out. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a new workflow. Now, when we're first setting up a workflow, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set up a trigger. Now, you have a couple of triggers. When you don't have any nodes in here automatically, it's just blank like this. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to have to add a trigger. You always have to add a trigger, okay? And we can trigger manually, which is what we're going to do. But you can trigger on an app event, like let's say a Slack message came in, and so after that Slack message comes in, you want something else to happen afterwards. Or maybe an email comes into your inbox, and after that email is received, you want it to do something else, like send you an update, send you a text, or whatever, right? So when essentially this happens, execute this step or this action is basically what we're doing. So we have trigger manually on app events. You can do it on a schedule. So like you could say, at midnight, I want you to grab all my emails for the day and create a summary. And it's going to do that every single day at midnight. So that could be a good example for a schedule. On a webhook call, so this could be when a new HTTP request is created or something like that. It's going to trigger this whole workflow. On form submission, this is really good for those that are doing internet marketing or any type of marketing at all. You have a form on your website or on your funnel, and when that request comes in, you want all these different automated things to happen. That's when on form submission would be a good trigger. right? And then we have a couple other triggers. I'll explain these in future videos. I kind of want to get to the point of building this out. I think you get the gist though. So for the purpose of this workflow, we're going to do trigger manually. Okay, so all this is going to do when we execute is literally, it's just going to start it, right? There's nothing plugged into it, so we need to plug in something into it. So let's go ahead and do that. So the next node that you add into your workflow is going to be the first application in this workflow that's going to do a thing. It's going to perform an action. And so notice here that n8n gives us different options on the right-hand side here. It gives us different options. These are not trigger nodes. These are like specifically relating to an application or a data transformation or maybe plugging into another workflow, all different types of things. You could even embed AI into this whole thing, right? Which we'll get to that later. So for the purposes of this and the search bar, we're going to type in HTTP. We're going to click the HTTP request. And then in here, it actually pre-formats a lot of the settings that you kind of need right out the gate. So for example, the method is going to be a get. We're going to keep it as get, but you can do delete, head, options, patch, post, put. You have other options too. So we're just going to leave that as is. Now for the URL, this is what I'm actually going to leave this inside of the video or in the description under this video inside of my school community, my free school community. So go ahead and check that out. You guys can grab that, and this video is for free, so you can watch the tutorial in there as well. And I'll also leave a copy of this n8n workflow for those of you that kind of want to copy it and kind of break it and play with it yourself. So just go in there and check that out. So the URL is going to be this one right here, and we're just going to execute that. Now, the reason why I'm executing it next is because if you notice here on the left-hand side, we have an input. So this is saying when clicking execute workflow, which there's not really anything there, it just executes the workflow. That's our input. And we can see here we have one item, right? So this is going to be important later down the road when things get more complicated. You're going to want to track the amount of items because this is going to help you like build things and reformat data and pull different records down. But the fact that we're seeing one item is a good sign. That means that we're actually getting input in. Now, this middle section is the current node that we're working on. Okay, so the HTTP request, this is the node that we have open. So if we look here, we have two nodes currently. We have trigger and then our current node. If I click this open, middle is the current node. Here's our settings. Now, when I hit execute step, it's going to go ahead and push out an output. This is theoretically going into the third node, which we have not set up in this workflow yet. We'll do that here in a second. But the fact that we're seeing an output and it shows one item is a good sign. So this is saying, what's the type of joke? It's general. What's the setup of the joke? How do you make holy water? The punchline, you boil the hell out of it. All right, that was a little funny. So that is the idea. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a edit fields set, okay? Now, in here, notice on the left-hand side, here's our input, and we have the joke that we literally just read when we were editing the second node's configuration. So we had our type general, our setup, how do you make holy water, punchline, you boil the hell out of it, and that's that, right? And we see that we have one item. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to modify the output so that we can actually see a better formatted response, because reading it in a schema format or a table format or JSON format, it's not really going to do the trick. And the more data you're dealing with, the more complicated this is going to get. So we want to always be able to clean it up. And that's kind of the point of this video, is to help you guys understand how to do that. So let's go ahead and begin modifying that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the setup. Okay, and then I'm going to drag the punchline, and then we're going to execute that. Okay, so now it gives it to us in table format. So when I execute this step, and let me pop this thing open here. So I'll move myself up here. So when we execute this step, okay, we can see that we're constantly getting a joke. And I know it's kind of basic and maybe a little bit underwhelming, but again, the whole point is for us to get familiar with how n8n works, and the only way you're going to do that is by actually playing with it. So when I click the execution button it pulls down an HTTP request, which is the second thing right here, the second node. And then the third node is editing the fields. And then it gives us this output here. So what did the beaver say to the tree? It's been nice gnawing you, right? And if I click this workflow again, it's going to give us another joke. So what's blue and not very heavy? Light blue, right? So let me go to zoom out. Okay, here we go. So hopefully that was helpful for you guys. Again, if you want to grab this workflow, I'm going to be storing it inside of my free school community. The link is down in the description below. If you guys are watching this video within school, you'll find the exact URL that I used inside of the description of the lesson. Okay, so just kind of look for that. And you'll want to kind of play along with this. Now, once you've done what I have done, I encourage you to play around with other ideas. There's different types of API generators out there for like quotes and images and stuff like that. Feel free to play with it and see what you can get out of it by just kind of messing with this workflow and even adding things to this workflow, like maybe sending this message to Slack or sending a message to your email or something like that, so that you can kind of see how things all integrate together as you're experimenting with n8n. All right, hope this was helpful. I'll see you guys in the next video.